Welcome everyone to Coaching Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about how to prevent burnout. Now, burnout is one of those things that we would like to prevent before it happens. But in our current society, in our current world, burnout, this is one of those regular things. So let's get into it and figure out how we can prevent burnout. Welcome back, everyone. So if you are new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's get into what burnout is, because burnout is going to be something that many people are going to be struggling with. If we look at just the current society of how everything is, we have families where both the husband and the wife are going to have to work, not only because of inflation, but because maybe they're not getting paid enough. And there's just so much more going on. And the cost of living has skyrocketed. So now there's a financial burden where if one person is trying to take on the whole workload, whether they have a traditional type of relationship and the husband's going to be working, the wife's going to stay at home, or vice versa, there has to be some understanding because both roles have stress. Going out and making sure you're financially stable and able to pay your mortgage, your rent, all your food costs, any overhead from the house, the children, the family, that is going to be a different type of stress. Because if you think for a moment that that's the only type of stress there is, think again. Because if you're a stay-at-home parent, mom, dad, doesn't matter, you have to raise the children, you have to entertain them, cook the meals, clean the home. That is stressful in itself. We have deadlines, and those deadlines are going to be those factors that weigh down on us. So what is burnout? Let's get into the blog right now. All right. If you're new to the channel, how to get to the blog is that you're going to go to revenconcepts.com, head over to the resources tab, and then you'll see that blog. This is the first one. Click it and we'll see how to prevent burnout as the blog we're going to be looking at today. Burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. This whole blog is going to be breaking down how to get rid of it. But today I'm going to talk to you about our current society. Because if we look at where we are right now, then we have a good starting point for this blog to take a hold and sink its teeth in. Because this gives you good information, but just because you have information doesn't mean you can implement it. Again, burnout is going to be dealing with a prolonged periods of stress. And whether that be financial, relationship, work, right? It doesn't matter what type of stress it is. It's stress. And as long as that stress is there, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be weighed down, bogged down. Your mindset is going to be bogged down. And it's not so much that your mindset is negative. It's just that it's preoccupied. And that could be a good and bad thing. So we're going to be talking all about that. But this blog, we're going to come back to it in a little bit. But this blog is going to be telling you step by step and how to figure out how to get rid of burnout, how to deal with it, and how to prevent it too. Because the best way to cure burnout is not to let burnout happen. And that is because burnout is difficult to overcome. So now that we know that burnout is going to be one of those things that is going to be one of the challenges that we have to face in life, whether that be that we have to deal with the stresses from work, relationship. It doesn't necessarily matter where the stress comes. And just life in general is so stressful. If you turn on the news right now, guess what's happening? There's a war in Ukraine. Russia's attacking Ukraine. And there's innocent people losing their lives. And there's men and women fighting a war that they didn't even sign up for. So it's not fair that people have to be stressed out about their livelihoods, about their family members, because they have a certain situation that came about. And that stress is going to be there. It's going to continue to be there as long as this world continues, as long as this war continues. There's not much we can do about saying, okay, well, why are we going to war? Let's stop it, right? It's difficult to do that because we don't have control of other people. But what we do have control over is ourselves. How can we manage this stress? How can we help other people who are stressed out, going through these stressful times, manage this stress? And that's the whole point of preventing burnout. Because if we don't allow the stress to get to a high level and it's manageable still, guess what? You can handle that burnout with no problem. Now, let's look at our initial sense of burnout. Many people get burned out from paying bills, right? You might have a phone bill, a water bill, gas bill, electricity bill. There's so many bills, right? And we can calculate our monthly costs and we can find out that we're going to need $1,200 in utility bills alone. Now we might have a mortgage where we have to pay rent. So we're going to say that's going to be an extra $1,000. So we tack that on to our already monthly costs from our bills, now with our mortgage. And then we have to say, okay, well, we have to eat. So what do we budget for food? So we budget our food. And then after we budget our food, we have a good understanding of, okay, this is how much I need to make per month. Now, let's say you just make that every single month. You make just enough money to get by. Are you going to be stressed? Yes. Because what happened if there was an emergency and you needed some more money or you spent, then more money was budgeted for the month? And it happens all the time. You might get a hospital bill, doctor's bill. Life doesn't necessarily go our way all the time. And right now it's difficult because we have to understand that just because life is throwing curveballs at us doesn't mean we can't get a home run. When life is being stressful, right? It's throwing all these curveballs at us and we're in the hot seat. What do? Do we run away? Do we cry? Do we not take any actions? And I'm going to say that the typical response is people just say, I just don't know what to do. I'm not going to act. It's inaction is the typical response because stress is going to be an inhibitor. It's going to stop you from pushing, from doing more in your life, from doing more than what you're possible of doing because your mind is just thinking, and you're procrastinating. And one of the easiest thing a person can do during that time of stress or trauma is pick up their smartphone, sit down in front of the TV, and just allow their stress and their woes and their worries to go away. Now, as much as I wish that doing that is going to be the fix, it's only like a Band-Aid to stop the bleeding. It's not going to be a fix for a long time. But sometimes we need a quick fix in order to figure out, okay, what's the next step? Similar to if a pipe breaks in your home. Now, we're not going to find the pipe and we're going to start repairing it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn off the water. We're going to stop the bleeding. We're going to stop the flow of water. So now that we stopped the flow of water, we now can fix the real problem. So if you are the type of person who knows how to deal with stress, or if you deal with stress in a different way, what do you do after that? That is the key. And how long do you feel the stress for? Because we do need stress in life, but there's a good and there's a bad stress. And burnout is a bad stress. It means that we have compiled large amounts of stress from different areas of our life, and we allowed it to just consume us to the point where we don't even want to take any action. We're just done. We just want to sleep. We just want to be on our phone, on YouTube, Facebook, and we don't want to take any action. And whether that is because you're afraid or you're burnt out, there's a difference. If you're afraid and you're not taking an action, you can take the action and you can make progress. You just have to fight that fear. But if you're burnt out, it's like if you try to do the action, you're just like mentally not able to do it. And if you do try to push, you make the burnout worse, and or you're going to be making a task that might take 5 minutes, last 45 minutes. That's what burnout does. It makes you lethargic. I always tell people when it comes to burnout and when I see them approaching burnout, I tell them The best way to prevent burnout is not to allow it to happen, not to let it happen. Because once you allow burnout to happen, no one knows how long it's going to take for you to get out of it. And it depends on the type of stresses. Some stress you can be out of it in a day, maybe in a couple hours. But there's some stresses that are going to take a lot longer. It might take you 3 weeks, maybe a month, just to get out of a situation of burnout. And right now, we don't have the luxury of time in the sense that we can waste a month, we can waste a year because we're burned out. We don't have that luxury. We need to start to take action as much as possible. And regardless of how big or small the action is, doesn't necessarily matter. What we do need is action. So let's break down the blog a little bit, and then we're going to come tie everything back with what we just talked about. So when we're dealing, again, with burnout, it's going to be talking about a lot of stress that's in our life. And what we're going to be looking for is an opportunity for us to get our life back on track. That might simply be we need some rest that day. And we need to be able to identify where we need help. Now, if we're getting stressed out because of work, then we need to figure out what's causing the stress at work. Is it a project? Is it a boss or an employee? Let's figure that out. And once we have that figured out, then we can take the next steps. If it's our boss, why are they like this? Can we speak to them? Can we change? And if we can't change that situation, we have an option. Do we stay or do we get out? And if we stay, then we have to learn how to deal with that situation if it comes up again, especially if they're going to be someone in a managerial role. So we have to deal with them in a sense, but then we have to go a step further. Well, what if we do if we leave? Are we learning that, okay, if I have a problem, do I just run away from it? Or do you know your self-worth, right? Because if you understand your self-worth and you say, I'm not going to allow this in my life, then you know for certain that the reason why you left that situation, job, whatever, is because you value yourself enough where you're not going to allow the stress to consume you. Sometimes people don't even get to that point. People just say, I'm running away. I had a terrible boss and I'm running away. The moment you do that or you put that seed in your mind, now you're just telling yourself, I'm running away. When I have a problem, I need to run away. That's not what burnout is. We don't run from burnout. We have to come to a resolution for that burnout. Because what happens if it happens again in your new job, in your new career? We just can't keep running from job to job to job. So we have to figure out how to deal with that stress. Everyone is going to deal with that stress differently, all right? And it could be relationship stress, financial stress. We do have to deal with it at some point. We can't run away from it forever. And some people do better after they get a good night's sleep. That's what I always recommend. Let's talk it out. And after we talk it out, let's figure out where you can relax. And it doesn't mean go on vacation, relax. Just get away. Separate yourself from the world for a moment, detach yourself from work or the relationship, and just figure out you. And in the blog, I actually talk about this in detail because it's called self-care. And that self-care is going to be talking about how you are supposed to be taking care of you, because once you can take care of yourself, then you can take care of other people. And that is so important. Self-care. Because that is how we're going to be dealing with burnout. So now that we know that self-care is going to be one of those things where we need in order to prevent burnout and to cure burnout, what does that involve? Now, I'm sure you might have heard of retail therapy, where if you're not feeling well or if you're feeling down and out, you can go to the store, buy some goods, and then after you're done buying the goods, you feel better. You're like, whoa, I got a lot of stress off. And you also emptied your wallet. So retail therapy might be a good fix for some people, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is the only fix, because it's not. There's so many other methods you can do, whether that be meditation, going to sleep, watching a favorite movie that's relaxing to you, retail therapy, hanging out with friends and family that fill you up, that give you joy, give you energy. No matter what you do, understand what is the end result after you do it. You're not going to go choose retail therapy if you're having financial woes, or go on vacation if you don't know how you're going to pay your mortgage. That's just like, all right, it's going to happen, and I'm just going to enjoy the view before the ship sinks. That's not how we have to be living life. We should be able to figure out what is the problem and then figuring out a solution. Again, let's look at the current state of the world. There's a lot going on where we don't have any control over it. We don't. We don't have control over how Russia is attacking Ukraine, and Ukraine is fighting for its rights and for its people. It's freedom. And I can only imagine how much stress those people are feeling. They have to leave their homes. They have to figure out where they're going to stay safe, whether it be in a shelter or if they're going to run away to a different area, different region. And for some of those people, they're going to be stuck there. Whether they have a car to get away, whether they're able to walk, whether they're able to relocate physically. Because there's going to be some people who are going to be disabled and they're not going to be able to get out. Maybe they're bedridden and there's no transportation for them. So now those people are going to be almost left on their own. That's stressful because now the people that were caring for them are no longer there maybe. Because it's scary. People want to live. And the natural instinct for the human mind is to live, to keep on fighting for survival. That's why if you look at the news, there's so many Ukrainians taking up arms and saying, we're going to fight back. And good, they should fight back and they should give themselves hope. They should give themselves strength. Because the moment they can do that, the stress level from war is a different factor. But at least they're saying, I'm not helpless. Because when you're burnt out, it's a sense of helplessness almost. There's nothing I can do that's going to make me feel better, or so we think. So we have to get out of that burnout. We have to get out of that situation. And the best way to get out of burnout is not to let it happen. But if it does happen, there's going to be methods that we can use in order to fix it. So when you get to the end of the blog, after you have read all of the material, which I do recommend, is that we need to first learn how to take a break. Now, if we're so stressed out and we have all this paperwork, all these things to do, just take a breath. Just take a breath, relax, figure out your thoughts. Maybe you have to get a pen and a pad and you have to start writing everything down. Take a break. Figure out your plan. Because if you don't have a plan, then it's going to be your brain just trying to figure out what to do next. When you have something on paper, you can say, this is the direction. When you have something on paper, you can say, these are the directions. I'm going to follow them. And the end result is me getting out of my burnout. And that's going to be in the same alignment with our second step, clear your mind. And your mind needs to be as clear as possible so it can put things in its proper place. Because if you're worried about finance and your relationship is struggling because of it, now we're just mixing the two. So now we have two stresses. We're worried about finance and then our partner is also worried about us. And that's going to create discrepancies and more stress in the long run. The best thing we can do is to figure out what we're going to be doing. And then from there, going to the next step, going to the next level. So clearing your mind is going to be as simple as letting yourself veg out. Now, some people might think this is a waste of time, but getting burnt out is a waste of time in general, because now you have pushed yourself to the brink where if you don't fix it, it's going to happen at a more steady pace and you're going to be less productive in the end. So you're better off taking a day, taking a week if you have to, depending on how bad the burnout is, fixing it, and then making sure it doesn't happen again. Because there's always going to be stress in your life, and we have to learn how to deal with it. And we have to learn how to clear our mind from that stress. In the beginning, it's not going to be easy. You're going to be thinking about something, and this is going to be one of those things where it's like, I can't get it out of my mind, and I'm going to keep thinking about it. Eventually, you have to let it go. And if you can't let it go, you're going to have to figure out how you can let it go. And of course, getting a life coach, revenconcepts.com, you can figure out how to let go from something you're attached to. One of my all-time favorite things to do is to journal, to write it out. If you are going to be someone who is struggling, this is my number one method to getting rid of burnout. In college, I had a lot of classes. I worked full-time, had to pay for my own college, go to work, part-time, full-time job, and of course, 18 credits. That's a lot of work. Now, if you ever hear a student talking about 12 credits or 15 credits, they're like, oh, it's so bad, it's so terrible. I was doing 18, and I was working over 60 hours a week. And it's so interesting because in college, I was just like, all right, this is what I have to do. I didn't give myself an alternative. I said, this is what I had to do. Now, of course, I was able to do it. This is what I had to do. Now, of course, I was able to do it. And after college, when I was just a teacher, I was like, this is pretty easy. So I would just go to work and come home, and then I didn't have any college. And I would go hiking with my dog. We would go out in the evening, go walk, go run. But then I started to feel something come over, complacency. And I was like, whoa, I'm getting complacent. And then that's when everything started to change. Because I was so ambitious in college, working 60 plus hours a week and going to class, 18 credits. And then when I graduated, the only thing I had to do was go to work. And I mean, after that, if I kept that lifestyle, I would just have to wait for retirement. And then my life would have been over. That's not what I wanted. So I chose for something different. But in the process of you being more interactive, you need to figure out, all right, I need to clear my mind and organize everything. And journaling was how I did that. Because when you switch from one safety zone or one comfort zone, and you're trying to get out of that into something bigger and something better, or create a new comfort zone, in an area of growth and abundance, that is going to be a stressful task because you have to get over your fears and your insecurities. And I would just write everything down, and I would write for maybe an hour. And I always have a rule, and I tell my clients this too. After you're done writing, you can throw the paper away, you can put it in a drawer, but you never read it. And that is because what we're doing is we're just giving off that stress, those problems to that piece of paper. Now, what I tell people is after you get rid of all that stress, and you put it on a piece of paper and you put it in the drawer, get on a second piece of paper. Now what I want you to do is write the solutions. And the only thing you have now to look at is solutions. We don't see the problems anymore. We don't see the stress anymore. We see the solution. And that's how we're going to be getting rid of burnout. Figuring out the solution and then not worrying so much about the problem. Because there's always going to be a new problem coming up. Whether that be we have new financial burdens, whether it's someone upset with us, or someone doesn't like us, or we got fired from a job because the company went under, or government mandates and regulations caused us to lose our job or lose our home. There's going to be so much more stress coming in the next couple of months. And we can just see in the past year, heck, even in the past 3 months, there has been so much stress going on, whether it be the rise of inflation, the government mandates, CDC and the masks, and masking our children's. All of that is going to be stressful. The trucker convoy in Canada, that's stressful for them. Some of them are away from their families, their homes, and they're peacefully protesting in order to say, hey, this is wrong. And then we have a war springing out with Russia and Ukraine, even more stress. And we have to learn how to manage that. We have to learn how to manage our life better. And whether that be by getting coaching or figuring out your own life and trying to get everything in order where now you're not going to allow burnout to take over so easily, this blog is a must read. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you don't read this blog this year, you're going to find yourself in so much stress and so much dismay because you didn't take action. And there's no reason not to be prepared There's no reason to be stressed every single day. You have to learn how to let it go. And if you're at the point where you need some help, of course, head over to revenconcepts.com and we can get you some coaching. We can get you back on track and we can keep you maintained to going after the life that you want rather than the life that you're living. Because many people are struggling right now, but that doesn't have to be everyone. So you have to pick. What do you decide? Do you want a life of burnout and stress? Or do you want a life that you are in control of? And whatever you do is going to dictate the outcome. I would choose that over burnout any day. If you're just tuning in, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see everyone on Wednesday for the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone, take care.